Well, basically, I was here at Mississippi State 64, 65, 66, and I was a doctoral candidate in history. And I left after 66 to go to Madison, Wisconsin to work on my dissertation research. So I was here, I guess you could say, during the darkest moments of Mississippi history, right after the civil rights workers were discovered in the pond. And essentially, I've always been a person who's asked the questions that I have had. I don't know, some people are afraid to ask questions, but I've never been afraid to do that. And there was a shine parlor in Starkville called the Evans Shine Parlor. It was located on Lafayette Street. And it was a very popular place because all the students that were undergraduates back when I was a graduate student had to be in ROTC, which meant that they had to pass inspection for, among other things, their shoes. So they would congregate there to have their shoes shined. And Mr. Evans inherited the business from his father, who had had it before. And there were African American high school students who did the shining in the shine parlor. And so I was very curious about this being a Yankee from the North because there was nothing comparable that I'd ever experienced up in Chicagoland. So years later, and fortunately before Mr. Evans died, I asked him about the fact that his two sons were the two boys that integrated the public schools in Starkville. And I asked him, was that an event that caused a reaction or maybe a boycott because people didn't like the fact that your sons went to Starkville schools as the first African American students? And he said, no, it was not that way at all. He said that basically people said they were glad it was his sons because they knew that his sons were well-behaved and respectful young boys that were, serious-minded boys. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting commentary. His brother, Charles, still is active around Starkville, and he's a person you might want to look up, Charles Evans. Okay. And Maurice Evans said was that his boys that worked there, high school students, he said that those young men were brought into a very tough environment as far as discipline by Mr. Evans. He said that if they showed up late for work, they had to run laps around Starkville. And he said that he was very mindful of how well they did their jobs and so on and so forth. And he said that never did any of those boys ever not finish high school. And he said almost every one of them went on to college, which is kind of an interesting story that hasn't been told. At least nobody ever mentioned that to me. And I was present when Richard Holmes was brought through we used to register at the Animal Husbandry Building, which is now where the volleyball team plays. And I was there with another fellow Yankee student who was also from Illinois, and we as history students wanted to see this whole thing take place. And the bottom line was nothing took place. I mean, Mr. Holmes walked through the lines and there were no jeers, there were no fingers or anything else. Nothing, really. Seriously, nothing happened. And that's what he confirms today, is that it was more or less a totally uneventful experience that he had. And then also during the same time period, the 4-H students they used to go to Alcorn, would go there, the black 4-Hers, and the white ones would come to MSU. And it was also Mississippi State that brought the two groups together and integrate 4-H at Mississippi State. And again, there were no problems with that. And the married student housing at Aiken Village was integrated while I was there. And again, there were no reactions to having a black couple living in married student housing. So there were some positive things that happened. I can also say that I've been very active in AARP in Mississippi. And overwhelmingly, the people that are active are African American. There are not too many whites like I that have been active. And most every one of them had moved from Mississippi to the north. And again, my question all people with my questions occurred. And I asked them all why they moved back to Mississippi, and the same answer came from every one of them, that they never found in the North what they were looking for, and that they feel much more at home returning to Mississippi, today's Mississippi, than they ever thought they would experience when they left Mississippi as young people. So I guess those are the things I want to say.